Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Nourished Inside Out. I am here today with bravebear. He is a musician, an artist, and a sonic storywork practitioner. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Anetta. This is I'm looking forward to it. It's been fun connecting with you. I think we got a lot in common, and excited to dig in on music as a medicinal practice.
Absolutely. Do you mind telling us a little bit about your background and how you came about this career for yourself?
Oh yeah, my favorite. Um, well, I've always been a musician, and I believe that, in my experience, anyways, life tends to throw rocks at you, or hit you with a slap in the face every once in a while, or if you're really lucky, you get hit by a truck. And I got hit by a truck May 9th, 2020, and that was when it all really made a lot more sense. See, I can walk you through the entire day. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was Melbourne, Australia, beautiful sunset coming down, like just that nice golden hour right before the sun like crosses the line. You're like, "Oh, it's so beautiful." And I'm out on a bike. Okay, I'm selling this bike to somebody on like their version of like Craigslist right down there. I think it's called like Gumtree or something like that. It's so silly. Anyway, I get on the bike and I'm riding, and it's a beautiful sunset, and I'm going downtown Melbourne CBD. Beautiful, like just the best day in the world. And I get to this light, and I'm about a minute. Literally, I look at my little GPS on the bike thing. I'm a minute away from destination. I'm like, oh, great. And I'm in like what they would have like an advanced right, like less with us, like an advanced left, right? But they're on the other side of the road because they're Australia. So I'm sitting in this lane, and I look down, and I just intuitively I look up and to my left, and you know those like scenes from a movie where you're like in a truck, they show the driver's side and they see a train coming, and it's like, oh my God. And you get this, ha. I had enough time to drop my shoulder and put my head down. I'm a hockey player. I'm from Canada. I knew what to do. I know how to take a hit. I drop my shoulder, and this car just goes right through me. I get absolutely literally hit by a truck, and I'm out. I flip up into the air. The bike goes flying. I'm down on the pavement. Next thing I know, and my whole left side is on fire. And I'm like, oh, this is what the dying feels like from the inside out. Holy shit. I'm like, oh, this is not good. And I'm feeling the whole left side just get overwhelmingly warm. Not like a good, comfortable, like hot cocoa warm, like a you're dying warm. And I hear in the distance ambulance and like commotion and things going on. So I'm still like I stayed awake through the whole thing. I didn't black out at all. I remember the entire thing. I don't know if that was a good thing or not. Sometimes I think, well, it would have been cool to just black out for this whole part. I'm laying on the pavement. Ambulance arrives in their Australian accents. Paramedics, oh crikey mate, stay still, don't move, don't move. And I'm like, I just got smoked by a car. I'm not moving. All right, I'm good. I'm gonna lay here and hope for the best. And they must have thought I was insane because, like, a few seconds after that, I'm, like, laughing hysterically. I'm like, "What?" And they're like, they must have thought I was just bonkers. And what came over me at that moment was the fact that I was alive. I was laughing out of, "Holy smokes, I just made it. Alright. Like, I'm gonna be okay." I had this deep knowing I'm gonna be okay. Fast forward a couple hours, I walk out of the hospital. Not a bone broken, no internal damage whatsoever. A few weeks later, when I was doing my physical therapy and stuff and my osteotherapy, they said that I oblique tear maybe at most, but we can't even really diagnose that. Like I couldn't lift my arm for 3 months, but I was okay. And that weekend, this was a Friday, right? So that weekend was like Mother's Day. And all my family's back home in Canada. I'm in this toxic relationship. And it was just coming to head because like we're up like middle of the pandemic. It's just starting to get hot. And me and my then wife were close quarters. It was wildly toxic. Like the worst of the worst type of manipulation, abuse of every imaginable kind that I had no idea was going on because I'm on an island in a foreign country just going with the flow. Like, it'll get better. It'll get better. This is what it's supposed to be like, being in a relationship, being married. This is what it's like, right? And I was holding back on all my other dreams, including music. Like I was only the drummer. I was playing rock and roll band. I was always just the drummer. Oh no, I'm just the drummer. And I would literally say that. I was just the drummer, just the drummer. Really limiting myself. And I was in a like the biggest thing was the terrible, terrible relationship with both myself, my partner. Didn't have a whole lot of friends down there at the time. And I was sitting on a bunch of dreams. And when I got smoked by that car, everything came through. I was like, oh, we got one chance here. And I'll leave it there for now because I can wrap it up. We'll come back like Tarantino. We'll come back at the end because it'll make a little more sense. But that was the moment that I realized, holy smokes. 2 weeks later, I got up, left that relationship. 2 months later, largely forced from COVID, I got the last flight out of the country back home to Canada. Right. And then what are we, almost 5 years later, full-fledged artist label, made my music fit dream come true, started making my own music, releasing all the stuff that I already had, and I became much more than just the drummer. So that's life hit me. that's how I came to be the artist, producer, author. I've got 17 different hats. At the time, I was really limiting myself just purely through my language, and music helped show me, oh, I can, aside from getting hit by a car, I can be capable of a lot of different things, and when we start to realize that we are what we say and perpetuate, we can do anything. Sky's the limit, right? And I was just only playing I'm the drummer and I'm in this toxic relationship game. I'm in this and this is woe is me. And I was playing this huge martyr game. And it took getting hit by that car to realize, okay, now you can have your record label. Now you can be a full-fledged artist. You can release music and really help heal people because music healed me. Right? I remember listening to songs in those days, and especially after getting hit by the car. I was like, that's all I did. All I could do really was like, I couldn't really move my upper body. It hurt to sleep. So like, I was just like completely immobilized. All I did, put the cans on, listen to music, maybe go for a walk in the sunshine, and then just listen to music. It was just, that was where I really realized, wow, this is a healing modality.
Thank you for sharing your story and your journey on how you became about this and how you got to where you are now. It's incredible. It is, but it isn't. I say it's incredible because you took your challenges and you overcame them and made them for purpose. But those challenges were not something ideal that we would want or could even imagine going through. So, how has music helped feel you and with your emotions and influence you in a more positive way?
That's a wicked question. I love explaining music and its healing properties as first I like to dismiss the fact that the music healed me. It revealed. For those who are looking for anything outside of them, which is what I was doing in that relationship, I was looking for somebody else to fill the need of love that I didn't have for myself. So I think of music as something that shone the light on that, because like in that few days afterwards, it was the music that allowed me to get into my own head. And I like to explain music as an ocean, because most people, you know, are familiar with the ocean. And when we think of music as an ocean, we've got two parts essentially. I break it down to the surface, the waves, or the perfect, serene, calm looking ocean. And then you've got the current underneath. And when we think about the surface, that's like the emotive stuff. That's like the tempo, the lyrics, the way it makes us feel. That's a lot more about the heart. It resonates with the listener's heart, their gut, their emotion. Whereas when we get under that surface, whether it's rocky waves or if it's a nice crystal clear ocean, we've got this frequency of music that plays a really, really big part in how it really shapes us and our nervous system. And when we tie those two things in, our heart and our nervous system, we can really help manipulate the stress that we're in. We can help manipulate all of the things that we do. And that's why as a functional musician, I use music. I'm sure your listeners are familiar with functional medicine and functional or medicinal mushrooms. These are things that serve, and even I saw in the store today, functional chocolate. I'm like, oh, that's cute. you know, we've got food that serves a primary function. So when we think about music, I have really taken music as, to stay with that ocean analogy, looking at beyond what we just see on the surface, just the emotion. Because if we do that, there's some really whack stuff that if we examine some of the lyrics in the most popular songs. And when we examine what that can do when tied to a frequency that is actually stimulating the nervous system, we can actually get much more performance, focus, healing, because it reveals, like it brings something up inside of us. And that's not necessarily the emotion of the song. That's not necessarily the lyrics. That's the frequency. That's the stuff that you feel rather than hear. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Tracking?
Well,
Yep.
that makes sense. Can you explain how listening to a certain group of music can reduce stress or anxiety?
100%. That's my favorite, because a lot of people will just listen to songs. Like, let's use you as an example. When you listen to a certain song, like you've probably got a song that really brings you home, a song that brings you back to the first time you remember going out on a date, or your first dance, the first breakup. A lot of firsts are tied to emotion, right? And emotion rhymes with ocean, so let's go with it. Music is broken in, like it's a vibration. When you say somebody's got a good vibe, what do you mean? Somebody comes into the room and you're like, oh, a vibe's off. What do you mean by that? What does that mean to you? When you get into a room and something's just not right, You ever been there?
Yeah, but like I never really thought about it like that.
Think about it this way. Words are my other mastery. Okay. So, like, when we tie lyrics with music, we've got a magical spell. Okay. When we think about vibe, oh, that guy's vibe. I love that guy's vibe. What do we mean? That's a vibration. They're carrying a certain energy. And the reason is as a study as a Czech practitioner, the Czech Institute out of California, what we learn in that is the chakra system. And our body has energy centers. And this is really, really popular in the spiritual world. And thank goodness it's coming into the Western side. It's more of an Eastern philosophy. And when we look at our body, we're broken up into, if we'll stay with the simple 7 chakras. There's up to 13, probably even more. We'll stay with the 7. Okay. And going from the top down, we've got the crown, we've got the third eye, we've got our throat, we've got our heart, we've got our solar plexus, we've got our sacral, and we've got our root. So all the way down, each energy system of our body represents certain symptoms in our physical world. But this is energy. And the cool thing about it, one of the coolest anyways, is that it's a vibration. And we know there's a solfeggio frequency correlating to each of those energy centers. So when we talk about music as a healing mechanism, if I'm experiencing, I'll use me as an example, I was experiencing a lot of trauma in my relationships. And I'm pointing, for those of us watching, to my chest. So we'll hold a lot of our relational problems in our arms, our fingers, wrists, elbows, shoulder blades, up into the shoulders, right around the heart. And that's all related to the heart chakra, because the heart chakra is all about love, compassion. The actual I love is like your affirmation associated, and it's a green color, right? So these are all things. And then when we tie in the one that I find, there's a couple, but the one that I find the most is I guess 2, 639 hertz and 432 hertz. So those 2 frequencies, that's the kind of music that I will play if I'm experiencing some tightness, some energy stuckness in any of those areas of my life. If it's friends, if it's family, if it's coworkers, if it's anything relational or anything that I know that I love, if I'm experiencing some sort of weird, we can use our body as kind of a guide. We're like, oh, my shoulder's off. I wonder what's up. Yeah, it could be the fact that you're doing an improper exercise. As a movement coach, I know this, right? And what if it's the fact that you haven't addressed that daddy issue that you may have had when you were a child? We never fully got into it. And it's still showing up and it's giving you, like, remember what I said. Life will throw pebbles, they'll throw rocks, they'll slap you in the face, and then sometimes, if you're lucky, you get hit by a truck. Those are little signs that your body is trying to send you, saying, "Hey, pay attention to me. We've got something going on." More often than not, I have found in my practice that that is more related to any ailment is related to an emotional trauma. Music can go in there and pick it out. It can go, whoa, because it'll send it. When you listen to a 432 or a 639, you will feel something in that area, and it will likely be very discomforting. That's the power of vibration. I speak at a very different frequency. I understand that. It's the power of vibration. It honestly is, isn't it? Like that's where it's at. We've got real world examples of this. Like it's all over the place. Like name your favorite artist. Name your favorite song. We can do a little dissection on that. For anybody listening, this is profound because this is something that you can do so passively. If you want to nourish yourself from the inside out, start paying attention to what you're listening to, what you're consuming more than just calories. Okay. It's what you're listening to.
Can you talk a little bit about like words and lyrics and the vibrations?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the easiest way for this, um, you're familiar with the word abracadabra, right?
Not really.
No? No? Okay. Have you ever heard of it?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think of when you hear abracadabra?
Magic.
Oh, yeah, right? Most people will say that. Can I share with you where it comes from?
Sure.
Okay. Ancient Aramaic word. Okay. So back in the days, the Gentiles, the Jews, the traditional Aramaic language, ancient language, directly translated, abracadabra means with my word I create, or with my word I influence. And people go, oh. And to put it in perspective, you ever wonder why we call it spelling?
No.
Right?
Yeah.
It's everything we say. So a lot of people, there's that age old discussion. Actions are more powerful than words. Okay. Well, if you believe that, what if I told you actions are based on words? Now what's more powerful? Right? If we think about the way that we articulate our thoughts, it's through the words that we choose to use. The words that I'm saying to you right now and to any of my colleagues, my friends, my loved ones, anybody, outwardly, and the words that I choose to say to myself about myself, my story. Okay. And that's when you're introducing me as the sonic story worker. Yeah, that's what I am. I work on people's stories and I just happen to bring music into the play. When we go on that line of thought, so let's imagine all of our thoughts are articulated. The way that we think is articulated through the words we use, both externally and internally. When we pile up a bunch of those thoughts into a big stack of pancakes, we've got what's known as a belief system. That belief system is what carries out our actions. So if we're unhappy about where we are in life, it's due to all of the decisions we've made that were based on the belief system that we subscribe to. That's a subscription model, just like Amazon Prime. Okay, we can choose what our belief system is, which is rooted in our thoughts and our words. So if we want a really fast track, practical way of getting out of where we are or moving forward, moving to where we want to be, examine the words because they will dictate the belief system that changes the actions. Okay, so when we think about that, coupled with the power, go back to the ocean, coupled with the power of frequency, because that frequency can really light things up in your body and that'll reveal things for you to heal. Couple that, double down with lyrics. And now we've got positive affirmation, or we've got what's happening in the current model of top 40. You listen, like Kelly Clarkson, I hate picking on her, but I also love picking on her because it's so easy. Think about since you've been gone, I can breathe for the first time. I'm still moving on. Yeah, yeah. And you got a bunch of girls back in 2007. They're like 11, 13, just bopping their head, going, yeah, uh-huh, uh-huh. And I'm sitting here going like, well, that's interesting. Let's do some math because I love just hypothesizing. So I did. I looked at 2007. I knew that her target market was probably anywhere from 8 to 14. That was like parents had disposable income. Let's get a pop star in there to get their daughters out to the show. So that whole family comes and makes Kelly Clarkson a star. That's what happened. Tell me I'm wrong. Yeah, that's what happened. That's the pop system. Okay. I get it. I'm a record label guy. I get it. That's why we're flipping that script. Here's what happened though. I did the math on that. Those girls now are what, 30, 35. So I went into the old query. I went, Dear Dr. Google, in 2023, what was the highest percentage of divorce rates in America? And then I went further. I said, who initiated them? 30 to 35-year-old women. Oh, interesting. And I've got a whole thing on my podcast on this. You don't believe it. It's absolutely bonkers. It's not just Kelly Clarkson. That whole theme was that 2000, that late aughts, that 2005 to about 2015. That was the theme. That was our pop mantra. It was like, F those guys. Carrie Underwood's another great example. I played in country bands that play that song, and I'm sitting here going, plugging my ears, going la 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 la, because like that stuff influences us. And it's especially, remember, we're going back to the ocean, it's especially noticeable when you've got a nice little rocky ocean that's feeling so cool because it's got that what we call an earworm. Oh, wow, that's a catchy little number. And I don't think that and she's smashing the guy's truck, and you wonder why there's so much domestic violence initiated by women. I was actually in it. I experienced physical abuse. So I'm not making this shit up. I wish I was. But this is the dilemma that we have, is that we've normalized it through our pop music. So when we talk about lyrics, it's very important what those stories are about. Because if we're talking about how men are the problem, and we've got this huge feminist movement 30 years later, 20 years later, you got to take a look at that. Why do you think that is? It's because that's what we've normalized from a very young age in the most formative, and it's not even in the conscious mind. It's subconsciously that's normal. In our body, it's normal to blame the man. Just using that example, that's not the only example. That's just the one that we came up with the Kelly Clarkson thing and the Carrie Underwood. But this is the type of music that is really shines a spotlight on how powerful our words are. Abracadabra, folks. With my word, I create. It's called spelling for a reason. You're putting spells on yourselves if you're listening to this garbage, right? And that's what we're doing at Music Fit, my record label, to change that so that we can get real healing power going for music, what it was meant for.
I can totally relate with you though when it comes to lyrics and how powerful they are because I remember like I would always try to listen to songs that weren't so negative or so harsh or mean. And I remember the people around me would be like, why can't we listen to this song? And I feel like, no, I don't like it because I don't like the words. And they would just be like, you're just ridiculous. And you're just being a baby.
Yep.
I actually don't like that because I noticed when I listen to positive music, I would
Mhm.
have positive actions followed after. But if I listen to like songs that were just talking about hate and not positive things, then I would catch myself acting like that. And I
Yeah.
saw that. So I completely agree.
Yeah. I mean, another not so traumatic, but equally as powerful is when I was speed skating full time. Like again, I wear a bunch of hats. I was a pro athlete, right? So it's like when I was skating, I thought because everybody in the gym was listening to like Rage Against the Machine, Disturbed, Slayer, System of a Down, all this. Let's get our energy up, and music increases our stress. And like what we talked about, it can decrease when we're listening to a nice, chill, lo-fi beat. It can bring our CNS down, and it can bring us out of that stress response. What that music does is it jacks it up, plus compounded with hateful lyrics. It makes you crazy from the inside out. So when I was speed skating, I would listen to that stuff and warm up, and I would false start. Like the gun would go, and I was already like I would get disqualified because I was like so amped. I asked my coach, like, what do I got to do to stop DQing? He's like, what are you listening to? And I was like, I don't know, like Rage and like System, Metallica, like a bunch of rock and like heavy aggressive stuff that I listen to in the gym. Just the typical stuff. He's like, nah, nah. I'm like, what are you listening to? He's like, Dido. I was like, what? Dido and Enya. I'm like, what? Okay. So this is around the time that 1989 came out. T Swift. And I was like big time Swiftie. Like, all right, I love Taylor. I think she is one of the coolest pirates in the world in music because she has gone her own way and she has chosen her path and she is very, very committed to it. And I think that's very outrageous and very admirable in this day and age because like so many labels want to take her down, right? Spotify, she's fighting Spotify. Like, come on. She's done it a couple times. Apple, like, no, nobody stands. She is something to look up to. Love her or hate her music, she is an idol for how music business can be. And I turned on 1989. I was like, it's like, welcome to New York. Mm-hmm. Welcome to New York. And like, I was like vibing. I get to the start line. I'm still probably like shoulder shimmying like this, right? And I go out and I have my best races because I was down regulated enough. I wasn't overly amped. I was just in that right feel good vibe. We keep on coming back to that. I was in a vibe. I was feeling good. I was down regulated. I could control all of my breathing and I could skate and I could focus and it was amazing. So forever now, like anytime I've got a big competition coming up in any sport, I go right back to 1989. It's just tied to that emotion.
That's incredible. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So you said that you have a lot of trauma. How can someone use music to reconnect with their body after experiencing trauma?
Well, let's think about like what we've already been talking about. That's a great question. You're just full of them. Fantastic questions. This we talked about it a bit earlier. It's like music can be tied back to our first dance. Music can be tied back to our first breakup. Let's go there. Trauma. Do you remember your first breakup? What's that song that you associate?
Enchanted by Taylor Swift.
See? See? You didn't even hesitate, Anetta. You didn't even hesitate. You knew exactly what song came to mind. Most people, if I were to ask, where were you? You'd struggle a little bit. Maybe some people are like, I know exactly where I was. I know it, like they remember it vividly. But more often than not, when I'm working with somebody, I can get there faster with a song.
Exactly.
Because if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy, when did you learn that song? When you were like 2, 3? Right? Even some up in Canada, I didn't know, but I was born to be like dual citizen in like Australia because I was fascinated with Kookaburra sits in the old gum tree, Mary, Mary, king of the bushes, he. I went to Australia with my new Australian friends.
Yeah.
They could not believe that I knew their childhood. That's their version of like, if you're happy and like that's their song. That's like Australia. The only reason I know that is because my grade 1 and grade 2 teacher was from North Sydney, Ms. McDonald, and she brought us Vegemite. She taught us everything about Australia. My first sport wasn't hockey. Not the first sport that I learned in school. That's for sure. It was cricket.
Wow.
I know. I knew how to play cricket before I knew how to swing a hockey stick. How wild is that? Right? I know. So that's what I mean. All of this comes back to song. Kookaburra sits. So if we want to tap into our body, because our body stores the subconscious body is storing those emotions. Now, emotions are neutral. Feelings towards those emotions can be subjective. So when we tap in and play a song, when I'm sitting down, say you're a client of mine, you want to crack in on this like this horrible story that has to do with your current relationship. I know it's not actually about the current relationship because anything over a 5 out of 11 Biebers is likely something else. Anytime you're in conflict, anything over a 5, it's not about that thing. Tell you that right now, any listeners out there who's like, "Ah, why won't he do the dishes?" It's not about the dishes. It's not the dishes. And then we find out what it actually is. And it's oftentimes rooted back. And I can get there faster by going, do you remember the song that was playing? Like, what kind of music were you listening to? We'll start there, like open. Because if you think of like abracadabra as like an upside down triangle, we start at like the idea of the memory. It was a relationship. Okay, cool. That's a big, vague idea. And then we'll get, it was when I was in high school. Okay. And then, oh, I remember being in class. And then it was, oh, wait, it was just after school. We're getting right down to the letter. Oh, it was I remember walking, I had my Discman because it was old, I'm old. I had my Discman, and I was listening to Linkin Park Hybrid Theory. I remember that. Great album. One of the first ones I ever bought. But that was like that's how close we can get, and you can turn on, oh, I remember it was like, "Crawling in my skin," and they'll start singing the song back, and I'm like, "Great. What happened about that?" And they instantaneously remember the event. Instantaneously, because if I were to ask you, Enchanted, tell me about Enchanted. How was this? And I'll relate it. How did that song relate to you? What did that song say about you in that current moment? And if you want to play, feel free to answer.
It's that I was enchanted to meet you, and I was just kind of really getting over the breakup, so I was trying to learn to be positive about it. Like, yeah, like it was fun, but we're gonna move on. And I remember I was sitting on my in the Karen's backyard where and I just sat there and I listened to it for 3 hours. It was on repeat. It was just on repeat, and then I finally after those 3 hours, I finally got over it.
Wow. See, that's incredible. Very similar. There's a Canadian band up here, one of my favorites, Big Wreck. And they're a 90s can rock band, Canadian rock. And I remember my first breakup with the girl that I thought I was going to marry, high school sweetheart and everything. I remember listening to a song called Falling Through the Cracks. Let me fall through the cracks again. And it was just this like the whole album was like cover to cover, like breakup. And I just fell in love with that song without even knowing. It was just like the emotion tied with like the feeling. I just felt like, oh, you understand. Like you're a warm blanket for me right now, which is great. And that gave me the audacity to go and pick my shoulders up and go, you know what? I can get through this. You know, that music really helped tune me in. So to answer your question in a really long-winded way, that music will take us back to those feelings that we need to, you know, I mean, how many people say, I got over it. I'm over it. I'm over it, man. I'm over it. The fact that you told me 6 times tells me you're not. And what else? What if you got into it instead of over it? What if we went back into the dark? And that song will take us right back to that emotion, right back to that place like you just did. You remember exactly where you were. So all I would do now is I would get you to write that out just like you did. Tell me like we're going for a coffee. I'm coming down to Mexico. We're going for a good coffee. You're going to tell me that story and we're going to call it Enchanted. And now what we've done is not just story work, we've helped you write a song because now Enchanted turns into your song and how you can now process. Because now we take the conflict language out of your story that you wrote, we change it to architect language, and now you've got some power because now you can go, oh, that's not actually because you got perspective. You can see the story from over here. You can go, whoa, that's not actually what happened. This is what really happened. Now you can rewrite that and boom, you got your own story. And now those will typically turn into affirmations. So the whole sonic storywork process is playing music while you're doing this that taps into those chakras that you're experiencing. So when you were talking about Enchanted, did anything come up in your body?
Right now?
Yeah. Did you
Um,
feel a sensation when you brought it up?
Not really. I just felt like it was like it's like a positive emotion now, like a positive memory back to me. In the moment, it wasn't, but now it is.
That's great. That's awesome. That's all we're looking for. All right answers. We're looking for, is there any emotion? If it's high or low, doesn't matter. Positive. Because like emotion, remember, neutral. The emotion itself is neutral. It's not a positive or negative emotion. It's a positive or negative feeling. That's the subjective nature. We have 6 primaries, and I can walk you through fear, anger, love, sadness, enjoyment, and judgment. It spells out false judgment. So that's an easy one for people to remember. Those are your primary emotions, and they're neutral. How you feel towards them can be positive or negative depending on what you've experienced in your past, right? And then when we tap in with music, it can hit any of those or secondaries. Like anger can turn into frustration, can turn into resentment. Those are deadly. We want to get them out first. Anything with anger, that can be you've met somebody who doesn't know how to manage anger, right? They're scary people to be around. Not for you, for them. They're going around casting spells on people because they can't figure out the war that's inside of them.
Mhm.
Right? So if they're waging a war and you happen to be in the line of fire, look out, right? So music can help tap into that. So I especially like, what's your biggest workout? Like big bros, what's your best workout song? It's usually like Disturbed or System or some crazy death metal from like Norway. I'm like, cool. Why do you like it? They're like, because it just lets me feel like a man and talk from my balls. I'm like, okay, crazy. And let's tap into that. Let's get more like chill, right? Like life is way too short to be so angry, right? So music can help highlight those things.
So, like for people who go to the gym and they do intense workouts and they're consistent with their schedule, what kind of music would you recommend them to listen to if they're always listening to like the high intense music, but they're
Mhm.
more stressed out as well? So, what would you recommend?
Well, because to give you context on that, we've got to explain and educate people because I think a lot of people are miseducated. And the only thing more dangerous than ignorance is arrogance. They're miseducated and they think they know everything. You're like, oh no, like, no, no, no. So most people, when they think about stress, they think about, okay, I'm physically stressed, like I'm working out, or I'm feeling like emotionally stressed because work is so, or relationships, or like, we don't consider all six. And I've added a seventh. So the six from the Czech Institute would be physical stress for sure, emotional stress for sure, chemical stress, the makeup that we're wearing, the toxins that we're putting on our body, the fragrances, those are hormone disruptors, you know, all of that junk, that is a stress. Electromagnetic, the phones, the Wi-Fi, your 5G cable carriers that are outside of people's homes, like that is an electromagnetic stress that messes up with your own electromagnetic charge. Okay. Then we've got our thermogenic, hot, cold, right? And then we've got our nutritional, right? And what else am I missing here? We got chemical, we got thermogenic, we've got electromagnetic, we've got, did I say physical,
Yes.
emotional? And there's one that's not coming. Oh, nutritional. There we go. So we got our six. Okay. And then the seventh is sonic music. Music can infiltrate just the same. So if we're already stressing out at the gym, we're stressing out in a toxic relationship, we're eating crap food, and we're wearing chemicals, and we're washing ourselves in chlorine, which most tap water. If we're doing all the things, and we're wondering, oh, why do I feel so tired at the end of my workout? Is because you're adding more stress. It's not like it can separate those 6 or 7 piles of stress into like different categories. It all goes on the same pile. So when you go into a workout and you're already stressed and you're listening to angry music with violent lyrics, you're stressing yourself even more. What I would recommend, first of all, try this, and it's going to be backwards. And we did an experiment, and I'll get to it with a weightlifting team in Australia that just floored their performance. So now it's a thing. It's like the performance enhancing drug that's not illegal, right? Try listening to music first that's just instrumental. Remove lyrics altogether, because the only thing that should be in your head when you're lifting, if you're in the gym, for the most part, is either your coach or your own thoughts. You don't need anybody else in there. You've likely got a lot of other people's voices in your head anyways, because you're people pleasing, right? Most people, right? Most well-meaning people, they're not doing it out of malice or anything. It's just that they want to, be loved. And oftentimes we just have to do all the things that everybody tells us we have to do because we want to be the person that they want us to be, not who we want. So if you're in the gym, this is a great opportunity for you to listen to instrumental music in 432. If you're looking for performance, 528. Now, the convenient factor of this is I've made 2 albums, one for recovery and one for performance, called Fire. The recovery is ice because it's polar, right? And this album I whipped up for a performance trial with the Whit Sundays weightlifting team out of Australia. They all PR'd. In particular, one masters competitor hadn't lifted Olympic lifting for 2 years. And she's just like 6 weeks out, she's like, I'm gonna do a lift. Can I like I want to try your music. I'm not gonna change anything else. She didn't change anything else and she PR'd. She's got world records. You can't take her down. She's incredible. 50 some years old, and she's throwing a car over her head. And the only thing she changed was the music. That's it. Performance matters, guys. So when you're listening to the right music, you can hit those. The solar plexus is the 528. So solar plexus, that affirmation, that energy center we talked about earlier, that's I do, associated with yellow. So that means I'm going to do it. That's, if we're looking for performance, that's the frequency I want you to listen to, 528 hertz, sometimes 432 as well, depending on the person, because everybody's a little different, right? It'll hit a little higher, a little lower, depending on that person. But generally speaking, 432, 528, that zone is perfect for getting performance under the barbell in the gym without the annoyance, the trash, the noise, the clutter of lyrics. Okay, so it's instrumental stuff. You'll hear all my stuff is very instrumental. I've got some stuff that's got lyrics too, affirmations and stuff, all very positive. But for the most part, performance and focus music, lo-fi, no voices. So you don't want to get distracted. We want to focus, right? That's where I would start with people. And I'm happy to link you the copies so that people can check it out and at least listen and try it. That's the thing, is that if you're gonna take a real shot at this, if you want some performance, you got to try things to get different results. Different things produce different results, right?
Yeah, that's incredible. I really like how you said that, because I think a lot of times, like when people go to the gym and you tell them like, oh, why don't you listen to like instrumental music? And that's just not even a thought. But
No.
in my background, like I used to be a ballet dancer. So then when I would go to the gym, I would actually just listen to what I listened to in ballet class. And I remember my personal trainers would be like, what are you listening to? Why are you listening to that? And there would be so much judgment, but I felt more productive listening to that instrumental versus the screamo or the hard EDM, all of that.
Yeah.
Because then it
Yeah.
distracts me, because then the lyrics distract me too. And
Exactly.
and then it gets your thoughts running in places you probably don't even need them to.
That's exactly it. And I should have led with this too. Out of that traumatic experience, the first thing I did was I went to music. The first thing I did when I got back in Canada is I started, like, I was already producing. I'll tell you this is interesting. The first album, okay, so the album that launched this new me is called Go With The Flow. Go with the flow. All one word. Go with the flow. Because I was really studying, how can I get more into me? I had just had this whole relationship blow up in Australia. The day after I left, I didn't have anywhere to go. Right? I told you I revisit the story because it would make sense. Yeah, here's the time. I had nowhere to go. I was on my just to put it in perspective, I made the decision to leave. We had a little blowout, a little spat. She was at home. I was going to the gym. Because at the time we were still able to at least train some clients in person, and I was able to work out. I was working at Virgin Active, and I got out the door and I'm on the first floor and I walk down the stairs. By the time I get outside, out of like the data, into data again, because like in stairwell I don't have any data, I was trying to see, like, to buy a coffee on the way down. All of my money was pulled out of my joint account, all of it, like 4K. My then wife went, whoop, put it into hers out of the joint account. I had $0. So I couldn't even pay. I got to the counter and I'm like, I can't. And they're like, they knew something was up. They're like, it's on us today, bro. Take care. I'm like, but that also tells you how great the financial system is in Australia. Like, you can wire money instantaneously. If I'm staying in line, you can actually get, like, as a side note, anybody who's traveling in Australia, their banking system is profound. Okay. That's one thing they got down. And their Wi-Fi is crap, but their data plans are amazing. So just if anybody's traveling, okay, Australia's a spot. Melbourne especially, okay? If you're musicians, Sydney's great for the beach. I love Australia. So I get on the phone to my then therapist and I say, this is what happened. I explain the whole situation. I'm walking to, she's like, do you have enough like, do you have clothes with you? I'm like, yeah, I brought enough for like a day. She's like, good. You're gonna go not home. You're gonna find somebody at work that'll take you in for a day, and that's what's gonna happen. I stayed with my one of my now best friends, Josh. Call him Joshy Czekanowski. He had a spot on the other side of Melbourne, and Melbourne's vast, so it was like a big train ride, 30 minutes from the club all the way to his place. But he kept me on his little spare room forever, and I had my iPad, and I wrote this really cool little bop. I had this little, just this cool little, like it put me, like immediately made me bop my head and like put a smile on my face. And then I found these like chordal progressions, like boom, 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 boom. And I was like, oh, that's such a sweet, it just brought me up from all the crap. I forgot about it within 30 seconds. And Josh was like, "Hey, man, that I just heard that. Is that you?" He had no idea I made music. Nobody did. Nobody knew I made music. Everybody was like, "You do? I thought you were a drummer. Like you play that?" I was like, "On an iPad? What?" I was like, "Yeah, it's like this built-in keyboard. I can play some things." He's like, "Dude, that I was thinking like I don't want to impose, but like I'm trying to make workout videos." And this is how I originally got into music. Is I was sick and tired of hearing like the YouTube crap, like putting these crap songs into my coaching videos. I was like, oh yeah, dude, I'll make you a song. No problem. I called that song Friends. And that song, like, it hits me hard. Um, like that music, that was like the first time I realized that, okay, cool, we're going to get through. Even though I just left my entire life, I had no idea what to do. I had all of my stuff still at my past house. And Joshy took me in, and that moment where I was able to help him with his videos because he was so kind to take me in, and like we worked together like we were brothers, and the whole team rallied around me. Like I thought I had no friends. That was the thing. I didn't have a friend in myself. I didn't see the friends that I had. I didn't even. It's so funny. Is that like if we look out and we lack. It's because we're lacking inside. So the fact that I didn't feel love with Mel, my ex, is because I didn't love myself. The fact that I felt like I didn't have any friends is because I didn't have a friend in myself. As soon as that moment hit and I made this song for Joshy, and that was just like the best day of my life, he loved it. It's still his song. He uses it for all of his videos. It's his theme song. And my other Australian friend also bought it as her theme song. Like it's my Australia song. It's called Friends, which is so profound on so many different levels. That album is called Go With The Flow. And similar to you with the dance, that's why I wanted to share, is that I had just discovered steel maced flow from another friend when I got back to Canada, and I wanted music that I could dance with a medieval weapon, like a mace. I've got one right here. I'll show you what it looks like. It's literally a weapon. Like, look at this thing. Like this is my 5 kilo, and you can swing this thing around, and you can essentially dance with strength. So it's like super cool. It's like warrior dance. It's so cool. And this is what got me through all of that. And I needed music to accompany it. So I made that whole Go With The Flow album based off of a movement practice that was really important to me at the time for healing.
That's incredible. And it just ties everything in how you said, like, music will remind you of your first. Music will remind you of a certain situation that happened. And this song that you made, it really hits home with you with creating your community and starting your healing journey for yourself and to figure out your path and to pave a new path. And it's profound. It's incredible. I love
Yeah.
to hear that. I know
Thank you.
we want to play some beats that you were telling me here.
Yeah. You hear it? Oh, yeah. That's that beat that I was talking about. And the chords. it's it's something you can see yourself dancing to this, right? I often find myself saying this to people. It's less about, people talk about coincidence. Here, I'll pull this down, and that's the idea of Friends. So if you guys want to listen to this, this is Friends by Brave as Bears. And the frequency, I remastered it in 432. That's why we generally hear when people listen to this for the first time, they go, I feel so peaceful. I'm like, yeah, that's that frequency. That's what 432 does. Most of my stuff, I've got a hand pan in the back over here, this little spaceship looking thing. I've got my Juno keyboard that's all tuned to 432. So 432 is a really powerful, powerful, peaceful. It just hit, like, I want to, instead of me saying it, what did you really feel though? Because you heard some things, but what was going on in your body when you were listening to that?
It made me forget about everything and just really live in the present moment.
That is the highest praise. Because imagine if more of us could do that. Imagine if more of us could stop worrying about what's tomorrow, what was yesterday, because all you got is right now. It's the gift, present, right? So if we can have music help people get to a point where they're comfortable just being rather than doing, we're winning. We're really winning. And oftentimes it's not it's not like the coincidences of that picture and the fact that it's all full circle. It's not a coincidence at all. So we don't actually have the ability to see all the levers and pulleys behind the scenes. You know what I mean? That's the magic. That's that. Ah, and when we start thinking more along the lines of everything is happening for us, despite the negative situation, the pain that we're currently going through, man, life changes. And that's when we can really be.
It's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your story and all of your knowledge and your music with us today. It's been such a pleasure working with you guys, court you, and where can they stay in touch with you and find your music?
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. This has been a real treat. Thank you so much for allowing me because, like, you do these things, and it's always interesting to see where you take me, right? Like that's the coolest part. A lot of this stuff I've never really said to a public audience, which is really cool. Um, where people can find me, simple. If you're looking for my music in the sonic story working stuff, I've got an easy one to remember. Brave as Bears. Brave as Bears music.com. That's it. That's easy. And if you guys are on Instagram, I'm still up there. I use it limited. I try to be mindful of my screen time. If I'm out there advocating for us being in nature and being present, me scrolling all day and helping others to do that is contrary to that. So you can still find me, Brave as Bears Music, on Instagram. We've got a really cool community, which is one of the things that I'm really growing. And if we want to talk about my plans for 2025, community, those experiences down in Melbourne, that taught me a lot. Is that when we start appreciating ourselves and investing time into ourselves, being present, we'll start to see more of that in the world around us. We're going to see people come out of the woodwork to support us, like you have with you've been so gracious with your time for me today. I look forward to meeting you in person and being able to reciprocate that and help build a strong community of a whole bunch of leaders that are really taking care of themselves and the world around them. Because at the end of the day, that's what we've got. We've got ourselves, we've got our teams and our friends, and then we've got the bigger picture of like the whole world. And when we focus on ourselves, though it sounds selfish, that's what can better the people around us, which betters our community, which betters the rest of the world with little communities like that. So find all my stuff up on the gram, Brave as Bears Music. You can find me, Brave as Bears. Like, we'll make it really easy for you in the show notes. And we do concerts that help uncover these things. That's what I love to do. And in that community, especially, we do at least once a month. And it's always fun. Always transformative, I would say. Like, people come back with like similar experience, like, holy smokes, I just feel like a whole new person. I love that. That's the best thing. That's the best thing, is that when you can use that with music and simple language hacks, holy smokes. It's not even a hack. It's just being aware of your words. Right. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I know this is going to help a lot of people, and I hope that it does reach the right audience and to help them to understand that music, to take it more serious because it is a healing part of our journey and to really nourish ourselves from the inside out. So, thank you so much, Braids with Bears.
Thank you.